Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists, this is Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
The tropics highly active in June. Tropical storm Brett followed by what's expected to be tropical storm Cindy soon, and another wave emerging off the coast of Africa right behind the other two. Our team is live in the WFLA Now Stream Center to answer your questions, provide you with the very latest on, again, the tropics and how active they are this June, the first month of hurricane season. Hello there, folks. JB here with you live in the WFLA Now Stream Center on Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric. We have in the top right-hand portion of your screen, of course, mainstay on Tracking the Tropics, meteorologist Amanda Holly. Joining us from WCBD in Charleston, Grace Lowe, meteorologist there. She's our featured meteorologist today. We'll be hearing from Grace momentarily. On the bottom of your screen, you see the stream alert that we have scrolling. If you're looking for streaming coverage of the missing Titan sub, that will resume at approximately 12:45 Eastern time. We're going to be hearing from Grace, but first we're going to start with meteorologist Amanda Holly to go down really a train of systems that we have across the Atlantic today.
Yeah, very unusual for us to be tracking this activity in this part of the world this time of the year. One storm, let alone two active systems that we're tracking, and then another tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa. So what is all of this about? Well, I want to break down each storm for you. Let's get the latest on Tropical Storm Brett. We just got that in as of the 11 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center. It has strengthened a little bit overnight. We can see the, general organization of the storm continuing to move off to the west at 14 miles per hour with those maximum wind speeds at 60 miles per hour. Now, that official forecast does call for a little bit further strengthening here over the next maybe 24 hours as it approaches the Windward Islands. This does not have it becoming a Category 1 storm any longer, and that's really because it's going to encounter some wind shear. So that's good news. However, we're still looking at a pretty strong storm impacting the Lesser Antilles and the Windward Islands here by Thursday evening and into Friday morning. So keep that in mind if you're in this area of the Caribbean Sea. Also good news, though, looking longer range, that forecast really has this storm actually dissipating and disorganizing completely over the weekend, and that's because that wind shear is going to pick up. So as it approaches the Lesser Antilles and the Windward Islands, it'll be a strong tropical storm. But then it's going to weaken considerably as it moves through the Caribbean Sea, and then we're probably not going to be talking about Brett past Saturday. So that's some good news. It will not impact the United States nor the Tampa Bay area here. I think this stays well south. The forecast model's in good agreement on that general westward track all the way through next week. So Brett, we'll be talking about Brett for a couple of days, but not that much longer. On tropical satellite, this is Brett. And then this is the second tropical wave we continue to track. We're calling it Invest 93L, so the National Hurricane Center keeping an eye on it. And it does have that high chance of developing really at any time. But over the next couple of days, it is going to continue to get better organized, feeding off of those warm water temperatures. So there's a look at that tropical satellite. You can see that center of circulation, if you can call it that. It really doesn't have quite that organized center just yet. That's why it's not a tropical depression or a tropical storm. But again, expected to be at least a tropical depression, if not a tropical storm, which would be named Cindy here over the next couple of days. Now, when we look at the forecast models for Invest 93L, they're in good agreement that it's going to recurve out to sea before reaching the United States or really even the Caribbean islands. These are a couple of outliers here, but the majority of them take them right out to sea. So Invest 93L should also not be of concern at the moment for the United States. The third tropical wave that just came off the coast of Africa, really disorganized. That's what we expect to see this time of year. It's actually being impacted by Saharan dust, something that we haven't been talking about a ton this season so far, but we're starting to see some of that plume coming off the coast of Africa. So it's really embedded within that dust, and we're not expecting too much from that third tropical wave coming off the coast. That plume kind of dissipates as it makes its way across the Atlantic. But of course, as we know, we like the dust this time of year. It's typically what keeps that region of the Atlantic quiet in the tropics during the month of June, because we typically look a lot closer to home, the Gulf of Mexico, off the eastern coast of the United States, for that tropical development. We saw that with Arlene a month ago, but haven't really seen that since. We're tracking Brett in the main development region, which has only seen a couple of storms develop since 1851. The majority of June tropical systems develop in this region. It has happened before, but again, really less than 10 or 5 times here. A couple of storms developed in that region. I will say the years that those storms have developed, it has been active years. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to see this season. Of course, we are seeing that dust starting to pick up, which is good news. But again, with Brett, we are talking about lower than normal winds in that main development region, which is kind of why we're seeing those 2 storms organizing a little bit. But we'll see that wind shear pick up here as it moves into the Caribbean. Good news, because that means Brett will stay on the weaker side heading into the weekend, and then it will continue to dissipate. So uncharacteristic June pattern for sure. We're keeping an eye on it. Now, does that mean that we're going to have an active rest of the season? Not necessarily, but we're still certainly tracking those warm water temperatures at the moment. JB.
Meteorologist Amanda Holly breaking it down for us. We also have, folks, our featured meteorologist today, Grace Lau, joining us from WCBD in Charleston. We're going to do now about a 5-minute Q&A. We're going to try to go rapid fire. Folks, if you've been on the program before, if you've been with us here in the Stream Center before, you know you can use any of the hashtags all around your screen, and we can animate your questions on screen just like this. It's really simple, folks. Use a hashtag on screen, and that goes for our YouTube live audience as well. We can answer your questions. Hashtag HeyJB from Russell Bradford from WMBB's Facebook page. I vote hurricane season to be canceled. And then asking about the course, which we just went over. But Grace, what do you make of June being so active so far as the beginning of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season?
It's certainly shocking to say, just because this is kind of an August-September look to it. I open up Instagram and Twitter every day, and everyone's like, this doesn't look like a June outlook or a June tropical update by no means. And it's certainly exciting in some ways just to see a lot of activity in the main tropical development region. One thing I did read yesterday, though, the other tropical storm that formed around this time was in 2017, and its name was Brett. So it's interesting that both Bretts now 6 years later are both forming within the central Atlantic just around this time early in June. So something we're going to be watching, but of course, you know, this has an August-September look to it, and it's definitely something that's interesting to look at and watch, of course, for the rest of the season.
We certainly don't like the tropics being this active in June, but good to see that Brett is looking like it's it's not going to be consequential for the United States. It might be consequential elsewhere. Invest 93L looks like it might be curving up north into the Atlantic and really inconsequential, but again, tropics are pretty active for the month of June. Let's go to YouTube Live. Hello to our YouTube audience. Alan wants to know, hashtag HeyJB, how is El Nino and La Nina conditions affecting the weather? We talked a lot, Amanda, on our previous episodes of El Nino's impact. Can you give us kind of a quick explainer, if you will?
Absolutely. So we've had a few active years in the hurricane world, and we've had La Nina in place. Typically, if a La Nina is in place, we have more tropical systems in the Atlantic. So, of course, we look at the water temperatures in the Pacific to determine whether we have a La Nina, an El Nino, or a neutral phase. And right now, we're going out of that La Nina. We have officially declared El Nino, and typically, we like El Ninos in the Atlantic for hurricane season because that creates stronger winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere. We call it wind shear, and that doesn't allow those storms, those tropical waves that we're seeing come off the coast of Africa, to organize nearly as much. Now, it's a delayed effect, right? So we have El Nino, it's developed, but we're starting to see those winds be a little bit stronger. We just have to wait probably a couple more months for those winds to really be full in effect, hopefully just in time for peak hurricane season, which will, again, fingers crossed, keeping that activity low.
Use the hashtag Ask a Question. I'm going to bring Grace and Amanda in for this next one because this is a big one for our YouTube audience, but it comes from Facebook. David Fazel asking, hashtag Hey Amanda, will any of the storm's effects recovery of the sub that is near the Titanic? We're talking about, you guys, 2 completely different sections, correct, of the Atlantic Ocean? Absolutely.
So yeah, that recovery is going on in the very northern section of the Atlantic. These systems that we're watching, we have Brett, Invest 93L, and that tropical wave well to the south, not anywhere near that recovery operation, and won't be anytime soon. So that's some good news, Grace.
That is, yeah.
And let's go to some other comments that we have in our comment section as well. And I'm just going to look here at some of the YouTube live comments that we have. coming in. Are we? Is this, people are asking, and I'll bring Amanda and Grace back in here. Is this a sign of things to come? If June is active, does that mean that August, September is going to be especially active, Grace?
I mean, certainly it is an indicator of what's happening right now. Of course, we can't, look this far into hurricane season and what's going on. And certainly we don't really want an active season after these last couple of years from 2020 to 2021. And even last year, 2022 being very active. I do think we have a few factors in our favor. That El Nino developing right now is definitely going to help us out with this season. But of course, we're going to continue to watch and monitor this. But certainly it is an uncharacteristic start to June.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that it's, an indicator, right, for what we're going to see. I agree with you, Grace. I think that time will tell with this one. It's active right now, but I do think that there's a possibility the activity could wind down as we head into those peak hurricane months. However, we are still dealing with those competing factors of El Nino and the record warm water temperatures. So we'll see. We'll have to see which one ends up winning out.
This is an interesting question from Steven on the WFLA Facebook page, #HeyAmanda. With these early storms in season, will the Atlantic water be cooler later in the season? Could a lot of storms early cool down the ocean later? Does it work like that?
It's a great question, Steven. So typically, we don't see the waters be really warm just yet because we're dealing with a lot of dust coming off the coast of Africa, and that dust impedes that sunlight from reaching the Atlantic Ocean, which keeps those water temperatures a little bit cooler. We also typically see those easterly trade winds picking up, and that also helps to keep those water temperatures a little bit cooler. Now, will the storms themselves help to keep the water temperature is cooler? Maybe a hair. I don't think it will have a significant effect on it later on, but if we can start to see more dust coming off the coast, that will help to keep those water temperatures from warming up any more, which is what we hope to see here over the next few months.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I remember last season, it kind of had a slower start to it just because of that Saharan dust, even lasting
It was
all the way
thick last year, yeah.
lasting into July. I remember being, nothing was really happening. And of course, when that does leave, that's when waters continue to warm up just a little bit further. So that's certainly something that's helping us out, in the near future throughout the rest of the hurricane season.
Grace, before we go, Grace Lau, again, give her a follow, folks. Meteorologist at WCBD in Charleston. Grace, what are you going to be monitoring in the days and weeks ahead?
Certainly watching Invest 93L and of course that wave off of Africa, but of course that Saharan dust that we're going to continue to see, hopefully, cool things down just a little bit over the Atlantic. And, this, like I said, looks more of like an August, September outlook. So things right now, of course, are firing up in the tropics, but hopefully, throughout the rest of the season, things will begin to calm down just a little bit for us.
Couldn't agree more. Hopefully July 4th comes around and we're not talking about anything out there in the tropics. Grace Lau, WCBD, Amanda Holly, WFLA. Folks, I'm WFLA Now's JB Buno. Let me explain where we go from here. We're going to be resetting now, going back to WFLA Now to get ready for a 1 o'clock press conference from the U.S. Coast Guard. So stick around if you're watching this live stream. Facebook Live will be launching a new Facebook live stream. So that's coming up at 1. If you want an update on what is going on with the search efforts for the missing Titan sub in the North Atlantic, that again is starting in about 15 minutes from now. Don't go anywhere. That's coming up next in a new Facebook live stream. YouTube, WFLA.com, WFLA app. You don't have to go anywhere. You're going to see it right here on your screen. Again, a big thank you to Amanda and Grace. We'll see you next time on Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
Find Tracking the Tropics on these platforms. And for storm updates, the latest models, and helpful resources, visit trackingthetropics.tv.